Hello and welcome to the It Works in My Machine podcast. I'm Carolina, and this show is brought to you by TimeCamp, so you can hear about behind the scenes of software development, IT consulting companies, and get some actionable tips from leaders from this environment. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Maciej Wilczynski, who is the founder of Valueships. He'll explain to us what it takes for business to set up the most appropriate pricing strategy, and he'll also share his piece of advice on how to increase your business profitability by using the most out of your business potential. So let's dive in and take a look at how it works on Valueships machine. Hi, Maciej. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And it would be really nice if we start by you telling us a few words about yourself, what are you known for, and what you perhaps would be like to know for.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Maciej Wilczynski. I am a founder and managing partner at Valueships. Valueships is a pricing and value management consultancy. So I spent the last couple years at McKinsey & Company, where I consulted like big companies in terms of digital marketing, digital strategy, but also software as a service companies and pricing and profitability management. And I decided to leave and set up my own boutique consultancy, which is doing pretty much the same thing, but for slightly smaller companies. I also happen to have a PhD in SaaS pricing, so I kind of see myself as a certified expert. And we work a lot as Valueships with software as a service companies, but also professional services companies. In this case, software development, custom software development players.
Now, since you mentioned about owning your own company like Valueships, let's come back to the moment when you decided for 100% that you want to choose this direction and choose this path of being an entrepreneur. What were the reasons that brought you into entrepreneurship?
Honestly, there were like two things that were important. First one was there was like a kind of internal factors and external factors. Like internal one was very simple. I had like 4 or 5 positions at McKinsey. When I started from like a junior, and I moved to leading the European side of Agile Insights suite, which was like a solution serving the clients in digital marketing. I realized that I kind of reached the plateau of my growth as a professional. And I kind of knew that everything next will come into more internal politics, managerial aspects, only like kind of moving around the different network activities within the company, maybe leading some, events, some facilitating some stuff, but it won't make me a better expert, specialist, a professional in the field. Like while I would probably grow like my people management skills, like kind of, navigating the politics of the big corporation and multinational corporations and kind of networking, that would be beneficial. But I decided to move somewhere else. And second thing was I kind of had to do it because I also did my PhD. I was teaching, and I was receiving more and more like inquiries and offers to make something, and the company policy for like kind of didn't allow me for that because I was like fully staffed on the work I was doing. So I couldn't connect these two things. But I had the constant inflow of people wanted to, do projects, research projects, business projects, and I simply couldn't do it. So for me, it was like two things. Like one thing is like my decision to move, which is like a regular thing. And second was just like kind of I was also pushed towards this direction. And this is how I ended up like, okay, it's time to do something on my own. I didn't really have clients for my services. I kind of set up 2 companies at the very beginning, and FYI, this is an advice that I don't recommend. So start building one thing and maybe move to another. But I managed to get the angel investing funding initially for about like 20% of my company. Now they fully exited, so it's different. But I brought more experienced people in. In the end, it seems that I didn't need them because I had the clients from like not the first day, but from the first month or second month where I actually had this. But in a nutshell, I didn't make this decision, like I didn't have an inflow of clients because there is a very common pattern, people will leave the corporation when they already have clients for their services. For me, it was something that I don't recommend because it was kind of like a leap of faith, but with the safety net of an external investor and another project kind of that I was doing at the same time. So I wouldn't follow this path. I would rather try to minimize the risk, find the first clients, then move. And once you have this product market fit, try to look for external funding. This is what I would do, like kind of oppositely. But this is just I think this also adds some context.
Now, having you said and just broaden up this context about the beginning stages of Valueships, you said that you had this challenge with first clients, but at the end of the day, you found some. So what were the ways and where did you find some of your first clients and how did it happen?
Well, pure network. There is no marketing channels that you have like initially. It was pure network. As I said before, that I had some other activities that I couldn't fully perform, but still I did them. Like I for instance took part in some hackathons, in growth meetups in Wrocław, in here in the city. There were a lot of startups and software as a service companies there. And I kind of engaged in this community, and I started to be a somewhat like a person who was known for their pricing from this pricing knowledge, and no one really had this spike in pricing. And I happen to know both SaaS and pricing, so my voice was a thing that mattered. I also took part in SaaS Talk Local in Krakow, so I was actually speaking at the conference, like it was a small meetup actually. So initial traction, so to say, was actually coming from the network, obviously from the people who just came to me when I offered that, hey, I'm setting my own shop. So they kind of inbounded. But also the second thing was I started to push my agenda a lot in like guest podcasts like this. And when you have something to share, when you have something valuable to say, I think the best platform for you is to jump to other people's channels. And for instance, I had this opportunity to work with Brand24 with Michał Sadowski. And FYI, he's like the biggest Polish marketing influencer, and they are also our client. And he invited me to his podcast, and this took us forward, right? And after this podcast, we were invited to another podcast. And, so there was this constant loop of guest speaking that obviously kind of comes from personal network, personal brand. But this is like when you don't have any marketing channels, this is the way to go. Now, we kind of get some traffic and traction from our inbound marketing efforts like blog post content, reports. But still, one of the biggest factors that is the personal branding of our experts, and we have few of them.
Thank you for sharing this. Having all the expertise that you have and all the knowledge and experience based on the Valueships and the projects you're doing, what prevents most software development companies from the profitability increase?
If we come from the perspective of a software services company, like as a concept, right? So these companies can be divided into kind of 3 separate types of projects they're doing. So there are the companies doing the high complexity projects. So we hire us because we are super smart. these are the projects that require creativity, innovation, expertise. So this is like hiring an expert that need to do something for the first time, and you just trust them that they are smart. You want to connect some technologies together. You want to do something that is not yet known, or something that is completely terra incognita, right? So every project is a one-off. Kind of like these projects are called like brains, like that hire us because we have brains and we are smart. And so this is one type of the companies. I believe Valueships is this type of company to some extent, because we like 40% of our projects is like a one-off things we are doing for the first time. Probably in time, they will move to the second type of project, which is like gray hair. So hire us because we have expertise in the field. So this is where you hire us because we have already created this 5 or 6 e-commerce shops on Magento, or we have created 7 or 8 Python data lakes, right? For other clients, or we have experience in doing retail because our client is Unilever or PG, right? So we kind of understand, FMCG. They are not retail, but like we have clients in FMCG, or we have created a pricing strategy for Coca-Cola, right? This is something that we have this expertise, and many companies try to show it. So this is more about having a lot of senior colleagues who can coach others, and they can lead the way here. And there are all these types of projects which are more procedural. So we have a great process in place. So hire us because we know how to do it efficiently, cheaply, and we can deliver it in the right way. So these are all these, like WordPress companies that create websites, or like Webflow companies. Like we have a certain framework that we're following. We are conducting a few things and we are pushing it to the market. And if you understand in which part you're in, you can understand the nuances that happen between the share of senior people you need to have and the share of junior people you need to have. And because at the end of the day, what you need to balance in the service company is a balance of senior people doing a more valuable work versus junior people doing less valuable work for the client. So you need a senior people to scope the project with the client, to control the overall flow of the project. It doesn't really matter if it's a lawyer or a software developer. At the end of the day, this senior people needs to be on the client side, need to talk to people. And then you need to balance which things we can delegate. Because the worst thing you can do is like two worst things you can do. One, have junior people doing work that requires a senior, because you will drop the quality of the project effectively. And second worst thing you can do is to make senior people do the less valuable work which a junior can do. So for instance, like research, or trying like basic coding, because they get pissed, they get frustrated, and also you are heavily reducing your margins because you don't have these billable hours on them, right? So you need to balance 3 things. You need to balance your own profitability of projects, so the balance between the margins and billable hours and all these things. You need to balance your client needs, so the quality of the projects, and you need to balance the third factor, which is the market, the employee satisfaction. So whether I still want to grow in this company, because professional services are people only companies. The only asset you actually have in these companies is your team, your set of people you have. And we obviously know what is the problem of the software development companies, right? People leaving, hiring new experts is hard. Developers are more and more expensive. So actually retaining them is critical, right? So this is the concept. So understanding where you at on this marketplace is critical, right? What type of projects you do and how you balance these 3 things at the first place.
In terms of software development industry, would you tell us what is the philosophy behind the pricing strategy that is appropriate for the business in this industry, and how to set the right pricing strategy that will work for you and not against you?
So we basically have 3 pricing strategies commonly known on the market. actually four, but let's stick to three here. Like there are like three C's: costs, competitors, and customers. And cost-based pricing is effectively you have certain cost base and you add a markup and you sell it for a certain price. So if my hour costs 50, I'm selling it to 400 and I have a 50 units markup. This is like a standard cost-based strategy. And unfortunately, many software development companies follow this pattern. So it's like all this bid leasing type of situation. I have a developer, I can sell it for 150 hours, for 160. It's effectively a commodity. Second pattern is like a competitive based pricing. So first of all, when we are in the situation where we know each other rate cards, we know that we are competing for the RFP or for the same tender, this is where we become to try kind of more market oriented, so to say. So what the competition does. And the third thing, and this is not the best strategy, because probably you wouldn't outsource your strategy department or your technology department to your competitors, but at the same time, you are outsourcing your pricing strategy to them. So, and pricing is like the biggest factor in profitability. So this is actually not the best approach. And obviously, the best approach is the customer value-based strategy. So you want to get your pricing to be aligned with the value. And I know that it sounds super obvious that there is always this value word that is, mentioned hundreds of times and no one really knows what it is. While value component in B2B services is actually super easy to understand. It's like a quantified activity or capability that you deliver to your client. In other words, does your services increase revenue of your client? Does your software decreases the costs of your client? Does your software allows you to mitigate or avoid certain risks because you're a cybersecurity company? Does your software allow you to maintain better growth, increase shareholder value? Whatever it is, you need to understand what is the software you're trying to produce actually doing for the customer's business case. If a customer strategy, like imagine you're working for Disney like 10 years ago, and Disney already decided that they want to do the streaming services, like the Disney Plus. There was this decision. If you read Robert Iger book about like this ride of a lifetime, you'll actually see. But let's assume that you're a software development company working for Disney. And there is an approach that you say, hey, creating this will cost you like, I don't know, like $20 to $30 million. And it will require this amount of man-days because we have calculated it and we kind of understand how the cloud and streaming services work. This is one approach. Second approach is we know that we are competing in a tender and they gave you 25, so we'll give you $22 million for this for the same project. And the third approach is I know that by the end of 2025, you want to have additional $5 billion revenues out of it. And I know that it won't happen from day one. So probably the first year you're going to have $500 million. So make it easier to you. We suggest to create an offer for 35 million because we understand what is the value that you want to create out of it. Because out of the fact that I have created a compelling business case with my client, I can defend the price that I'm asking for it. Because in B2B, the clients want to hear a word that is called, like they want to hear these acronyms, these 3-letter acronyms. They want to hear the ROI. They want to hear the IRR. They want to hear the NPV. These are the words they want to hear. They want you not to come to you as like, I have 100 developers and I can sell them to you for this price, because effectively you are selling the commodity. Like you're not selling grain. You're selling super smart people who can do something with their skills. So understanding, scoping what you can do with these skills for this particular client is actually critical, right? I'm working for a software company right now that they were just selling the mandates and hours and everything. And now what I have realized after like they told me some case studies is that they have a very strong, they were like doing, SaaS apps, mobile apps, everything. But also what we have realized is that they have like these 3 or 4 senior developers that can do the IoT stuff, like, connections of Internet of Things in manufacturing devices, that they can actually take your old machine, add IoT component to it, and, make it, kind of enable data analytics on this machine, right? And what happens is that this is literally what we call the industry 4.0. So a totally different, market and a totally different value proposition, because right now you can go to the customer and say, hey, we don't have software developers, but we can automate the data analytics or like the production calculations in your facility. We know how to do it. We have done it like 3 times. We will just run this as a consulting level project. So this is more moving the software business towards an actual like the trusted advisor for the company, because the purpose of this software is to do something. It's not like, hey, let's build an app. It has to create a certain business value. Understanding this value allows you to charge more for your services, because if you show how much value the client will get from this project, there is no point in negotiating the $120 for senior developer.
This mismatch and like misunderstanding of what is actually where you can actually be like valuable for others and where your value is hiding from what you maybe created at the beginning stages of your business as a value proposition, as you mentioned, like as some formula that will maybe help you to move in the right direction or maybe not, really demands like a very big changes in your mindset and mindset of people who are leading the companies. Can you think of the most challenging projects your team got to deal with so far?
Obviously, we have a lot of like challenges when we're working with software as a service companies as well. But kind of focusing on the software development companies, because this is the goal of this conversation. So for instance, we had this client, like it's maybe a few thousand people company already, and they had a situation where their biggest client, which a few years ago was like 80% of their overall portfolio, right now it's like 30 to 40% of the revenue year to year, decided to do something called, and it's a big Fortune 500 client, right? And decided to do something we call a vendor consolidation. So we have 5-6 different vendors doing like software, this type of software work for you. And obviously you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars with them. And every few years, these companies try to do something like, okay, so let's see out of our vendor portfolio if we can bundle this together into services and we can do it more effectively, cheaper than having like 5 or 6. So let's reduce them to 3 or 4 and effectively stay the same. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to maintain their margins and they have like overlapping services. So this company created a massive project and a massive RFP, which resulted in us helping our client restructure their entire project's portfolio. And they had 600 or 700 ongoing projects or smaller like work streams for various like clients and various capabilities they had. So we had to literally map every single capability in terms of the value delivered and show it to the client that, yes, this is another thing we can do here. So while we may not win in this, we can win in this. While we may not win in, artificial intelligence, we may win in, data warehousing or whatever, right? Like this was the concept that we wanted to show. And it's actually an interesting case because at the end of the day, we lost, but we kind of won. So the risk was being cut off entirely. The best case scenario, initial scenario, was 40% of the current business they were doing with us. But at the end of the day, we have maintained 60% of the business. So they cut off 40% of the business, but the value at risk was like almost everything. Leaving some low value processes in us, but it was more about passing the work to the other firms rather than actually doing something valuable. So yes, we have lost part of this business, but at the same time, we have won additional 2 years, or like if the contract is for like 4 or 5 years. At the same time, we have, but we have bought ourselves another 2 to 3 years of a company, people being fully staffed, no restructuring, literally maintaining the same stuff while you have this 2 to 3 years to look for other contracts, right? So this is a strategic approach, the strategic mindset. And I remember a call from the COO, and she literally asked us, to help us, and you help us not lose this RFP. This was like literally the scope of the project. And this was like a deck, like the deck. Obviously, there was a big PowerPoint deck, but what was the most important was like the mapping and the increased knowledge in the company of the value of the services and what we actually have in our portfolio, which people can do which tasks and what type of the portfolio we can do. And right now they are using this as a material to send it to the other clients as well, because this situation, like a crisis situation effectively, enabled the company to look for, to actually kind of retrieve what is the best in them. I know that it sounds super, basic and very coaching wise, but like what are our core kind of capabilities, valuable capabilities we can offer to the client, and at which price. And they have realized that yes, we will lose some of the deal, but we have other capabilities that were not a part of the previous deal. And what actually happens is we have reduced the overall volume of billable hours, but the type of work, like the value of the work, actually increased. So this is kind of, we have flipped it a little bit. So it was also important, but it was a big project. This was like a super sprint 1 month project, but like what was at risk and the deal, and then just to give you a content, it was like $30-40 million deal, like effectively, right? So this was at risk. So yeah, so this is like one of the hardest and I think most inspiring case studies we did. Obviously, the case is super confidential because both from the client and their client side, but this is pretty massive.
That's truly impressive. To top off this conversation with you today, is there anything specific that makes you proud the most about your team and Valueships in general?
Well, so remember when I told you that we are like this brains type of company that, like hire us because we're smart and we probably can problem solve over it and figure it out. So when I was working at McKinsey, this was also a value proposition of McKinsey folks. These were like the MBA people, partners, like super smart people, graduating from Harvard, Stanford, London School of Economics. They were expensive, yes, but at the same time, you could trust them in a sense that they can figure something out. And obviously at a smaller scale, like we're like a 10 people boutique, and we obviously have like multiple, like few other consultants in Berlin, in a few other countries that we cooperate with on like some projects. But like the core team here, like the core team also distributed in Poland is about 10 people actually. And what I like about this small team is like that they are super smart. That somehow, and I didn't have like the particular strategy of doing it, that somehow I have managed to hire people who are literally not afraid to start a project that they don't have experience in. because someone said that experience is a number of cases you have seen. And this is this gray hair approach. And I totally believe that to retain these people, I need to give them a new project every time, like something new to work on. And while, for instance, for us personally, like for me personally, doing SaaS work, like software as a service projects and pricing projects for cloud companies, is actually the easiest revenue I can get. These projects are super procedural. We have all the frameworks, we have the methodology. We did this for TimeCamp. We know like how to do it effectively one by one. Like this is how we're doing this. Like this is literally the you just need some like 20 hours of partner level, senior level expert involvement, and everything else is done by the process. And probably if I was talking to the VC, they would say, you need to scale and do only these projects. Yes. But at the same time, the brains projects for like your custom projects, the projects that are not that easy, they require a lot of data analytics effort. We recently did the pricing strategy for the e-commerce player marketplace where there was a machine learning component involved. And it was exciting for us. Like this was not scalable. Hell no. We probably can't repeat it again. But I believe that the value that was delivered by this project was coming directly from the brain, or like the brain power of the people we hire. Honestly, I don't think that there are that many companies in our space who could approach a project without a framework in place. Like if they don't have a framework, they are not approaching the project. We sometimes come to the project like completely, like white. There's like literally carta blanca on us, and we start to build on it, and then we come up with something. So this is something that I believe, like the team that I have this opportunity to work with them. This is something that is actually the best in this company, right? Obviously, there are like problems because of that. So there are like project delays. There are like some things not going in the same direction as we want them to. We are like fixing our projects. We don't work on the time and material fees. So this is a different from the custom software development companies, for instance. And obviously, we are taking the risk on us of if we spend more hours on this, we are taking the risk on us. So, but at the same time, we believe that it's not fully value-based if we just have the biggest projects done on the time and material. Because how we price our projects, we try to build a case. What is the revenue uplift you want to do from it? What is the top line uplift? And then we take the share out of it. And this is kind of how we are. But it's not a success fee. It's just how we try to navigate it. Then there is this cost component. So we try to see how many hours we actually need to spend on it. But this is a totally different story. So working with the super smart people is actually, I think this is more important. This is something that is actually better than even the invoice paid. Obviously, this is great, but like being surrounded by the people who are smarter than you is actually a great thing to have as the founder of the company.
Hope you enjoyed listening and learning about competitive advantage and some bits of philosophy behind pricing strategy. Thank you all for joining, and remember that at any time you wish, you can check out what we are up to at timecamp.com or on all of our social media channels, which are listed in the description box. See you next time.